Good evening, everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with us. You're watching Plain Speak with me, Shivani Gupta. The freebie debate is back at center stage, with Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal taking on the BJP especially on charges that his party has furthered this culture recently of offering doles that a state just cannot afford. It's not just about offering a minimum amount of electricity or water free, but about announcing doles like monthly grants without any benchmark of who actually needs it or deserves it. Is it not time to separate welfare from freebies and draw a line when it comes to what kind of lofty, superficial promises can be made during elections and in party manifestos? If a state cannot afford it, how can parties make promises? We will take that to our guests in just a bit, but remember, this matter has also reached the Supreme Court recently. First up, though, let me break down just how there's been a growing concern over freebies and how many institutions have been flagging this. Now, in April 2022, in a meeting of Prime Minister Narendra Modi with senior bureaucrats, two secretaries, while highlighting a popular scheme that was announced in a recent state election, which is already financially in bad shape, had said that such schemes are economically unsustainable. And they had also sounded a warning that such schemes could take the states down the same path as Sri Lanka. We all know what's happening as far as Sri Lanka's economy is concerned. The same month, SPI Research wrote in a report dated April 18 that Indian states' offer of economically unsustainable SOPs like farm loan waivers and restoring old pension systems is a matter of concern. Then, in one of its bulletins in June 2022, the RBI had said that new sources of risks have emerged in the form of rising expenditure on non-merit freebies, expanding contingent liabilities, and the ballooning overdue of DISCOM. So you've already got bad financial situation. There's very lack of commitment and lethargy overall to sort that situation out. And then you're also offering freebies which are populist in nature with no benchmark of who truly is deserving and who actually needs it. I mentioned earlier that the Supreme Court is also taking a look at this matter. So what was the plea that was filed in the Supreme Court? The distribution of irrational freebies amounts to bribery, especially in context of elections. Political tactic used to unduly influence voters, and that freebies vitiate free and fair elections. This is, of course, a larger debate when it comes to electoral promises. What did the centre say when this hearing came up a few days ago? That freebies will lead to an economic disaster, that freebies do distort the decision of the voter, and they said that let the Election Commission examine the issue. Now, here is where it gets interesting. The Supreme Court, at the initial stage of this hearing, did seem to be in favor of the fact that this is a problem. They said that we need expert body to frame regulations over quote-unquote freebies, that national institutions must brainstorm this issue. And this really should be a matter of debate of national importance. That parties must give suggestions for composition of this expert panel. Freebies have a significant impact on the economy. The Supreme Court had said this in one of its observations. Situation due to the inaction of election commission. So they had, of course, in a way pulled up the Election Commission, the body which has powers actually to stop a lot of what is done during election campaigning. They've also gone on to say that no political party obviously will oppose freebies because it helps them to come to power. And the more they can offer, the better their chances may be. But Parliament may be unable to effectively debate this matter. We must think about taxpayers and the economy as well. So which is that institution that can come together as far as this issue is concerned is also a matter of debate. First up, though, the big debate coming up today, is it a time to draw a line when it comes to electoral promises that border on unsustainable and insanity? First, here is how the political debate snowballed today.
ऐसा माहौल बनाया जा रहा है जैसे आम लोगों को फ्री बिजली देना गुनाह है, आम लोगों को फ्री बिजली बंद कर देनी चाहिए, फ्री बिजली केवल मंत्रियों को मिलनी चाहिए। ये माहौल बनाया जा रहा है। मंत्रियों को फ्री बिजली मिले, आम लोगों को फ्री बिजली नहीं मिलनी चाहिए। ऐसा माहौल बनाया जा रहा है जैसे फ्री पानी देना गुनाह है।
जमीन पर तो है जीरो, लेकिन रेवड़ियां बांट कर बनना चाहते हैं हीरो। और राजनीति को इन्होंने मैला भी किया, झूठे वादे भी किए और जनता का विश्वास भी तोड़ा। अरविंद केजरीवाल जी, आपकी विश्वसनीयता शून्य हो गई है।
All right, let's take that to our guest now. Harish Khurana is from the Delhi BJP. Meeta Chakrabarti is joining us from the Congress Party. Priyanka Kakkar from the Aam Aadmi Party. And Tushar Gupta is senior editor, Swarajya magazine. Priyanka, naturally, I'm coming to you first up. You know, it's not about free electricity and water. There's a certain standard of living that every political party can promise when they come to power, and governments can promise. But what about schemes like giving a monthly 1,000, 1,200 rupees to every woman in Punjab? What's the rationale for a scheme like that? And especially in a state like Punjab, where you've come to power, which is already massively under debt. Now, those are the kind of freebies that people are beginning to object to.
Shivani, hi. Firstly, see, there is a welfare scheme and there's a populist measure. I'm glad that you already began the debate by saying that free education and free healthcare is not an issue. When it comes to the concept of basic income, even that is an acceptable concept. Enough studies have been done on it, and it has shown no negative repercussions on the citizens of the country.
That's not true.
And I
That's not
definitely
true.
object to this word freebie.
No, Priyanka, that's not true. Free universal income has had impacts in many economies where this is present, but I don't want to go into that debate. Go ahead.
Very well, Shivani. So I was coming to this that freebie in itself, all the citizens pay taxes, whether they're direct taxes, whether they're indirect taxes. And thanks to the Modi Sarkar, there is now even a tax on paneer and curd. So every citizen of this country is paying a tax. We saw recently there was a report of the economic advisor to the PM, the chairman informed the PM that 25,000 rupees, if you earn 25,000 rupees today, you are in the top 10% of the country. In such a scenario, if we intend to make the life of the common citizen easier, and we are not just making promises which we don't fulfill. In Supreme Court, the petition is about the promises which remain unfulfilled. For example, the Ujjwala Yojana, where the cylinders could not be refilled because the gas has become so expensive. 4.13 crore cylinders still remain, they couldn't be refilled. Then I'll just take you to the numbers quickly. Water subsidy, for example, cost 602 crores. Electricity subsidy, 3090 crores. Similarly, and this is all in the developed countries, the 39 developed countries. You were playing the recording of the Honorable CM before this, and he mentions and he states the name of those countries where you get free education, where you get free healthcare.
Here's the reality check. Priyanka, here's the reality check. We aren't a developed country. You can't promise what we can't afford.
Shivani, I'm glad you brought it up. Now, you see, Delhi happens to be one state which has a revenue surplus since 2015 regularly, and 75,000 crore budget, 78,000 was the budget that was presented this time. We started from 30,000, 29,000 rather, in 2015. So, Delhi can definitely afford to do this.
What about Punjab? I began with Punjab, and my particular issue, is with doles. My particular issue is with doles, and I'll allow you, but don't escape my question. My question was particularly about Punjab and schemes like you'll give 1,000 rupees to every woman. Now, what's the rationale behind a scheme like that? Every woman in Punjab does not need the government to give them a dole like this. What's the rationale if not to buy the vote?
Shivani, if this is post elections that we are doing, unlike other regressive parties,
you had promised it before elections.
Dostwad parties and these Parivarwad parties, unlike them, we fulfill our promises. A basic.
Ma'am, I'm not asking you a question about fulfillment just yet. How do you even promise something like that? On what basis?
Shivani, it is absolutely doable, and why I say this, because we've removed the element of corruption. Unlike the Bundelkhand Expressway, जो ढह गया 5 दिन बनने के बाद प्रधानमंत्री जी के उद्घाटन करने के, हमने वो पैसा बचाया है 300 करोड़ तो दिल्ली के
You just came into power. You have to at least function for a year to show that you actually saved money. I mean, it doesn't work like this.
Shivani, see. Even within the first 2 months, we have been able to repay.
And yet you asked for a 50,000 crore rupee grant from the central government because Punjab is so debt-ridden.
Let me just finish, Shivani. Yeah. See, all of these things are absolutely possible. अगर 11 लाख करोड़ का दोस्तों को माफ ना किया जाए कर्ज, 11 lakh crore is the amount that has been absorbed of some corporates, whereas these schemes barely cost anything, and it is only fair that a citizen receives what they pay for.
Okay.
What is the government for? Look
Let,
at what
let
the
Mr.
MPs
Khurana
and
of the
MLAs
BJP come
receive.
in. Let Mr. Khurana of the BJP.
Shivani.
What's the problem? If
Hello.
they can do it,
Yes, Shivani.
eventually if they can show that they can do it and people are benefiting from it, what's the problem?
Shivani, the problem is they don't understand where their rule states are going in. They make a promise. In Punjab. They already know that the Punjab was in 3 lakh crore debt right when they came into power. If they want, they are not able to. They want to fulfill the promises what they made. Why they came to Prime Minister and asked for a 51 lakh crore package? Why? You don't have money to run the state, but you have promises.
Sir,
Freebies
the center
get
is
the vote.
supposed to
Let
give
me
money to
complete.
state.
Let me complete. What is
Constitutionally,
this?
sir, 42%
What is
has
this?
to be given to state.
Shivani, what is this?
15th Finance Commission
Shivani,
says this, sir. Please
Shivani.
inform the audience.
Okay, let
Shivani,
him
what
finish
is
his
this?
initial point, then you can come in.
What is this? I'm listening since last 5 minutes to that lady, and now when I'm speaking, she's coming in mid of that.
Okay,
Why?
go ahead.
Point is, within 1 week, they came for a package. Why? In Delhi, she's saying that the budget is in surplus. Since last 4 years, they have not released the CAG audit reports for 4 years because they were in surplus. The actual fact is 36,000 crore is in debt. Delhi government has to pay 36,000 crore. I'm not saying it. CAG is saying it.
CAG is saying we are in surplus, sir.
What is this, yaar? What is
Go
this?
online and check
Okay.
Shivani, no.
All right, one second. Yeah, let me just come in.
No, I can't do this,
Priyanka,
yeah.
I'm going to give you an opportunity, but he's not has an opening statement. Let everybody do that, then I'll come back to you. Yes, Mr. Khurana.
I'm not saying. It is CAG what it said. 36,000 crore rupees Delhi government has to pay to central government. 38,000 crore debt is on DTC. 60,000 crores on Jal Board. That's a fact. It's with me. Right now, this is a CAG report. I'm not saying it. BJP is not alleging it. It's a CAG report we just said. And CAG report has clearly said, this is a line what I'm reading it. Government needs to formulate a realistic budget based on the reliable assumption on the need of the department and their capacity to utilize the allocation resources. This is a statement what CAG has said. I'm not saying it.
So,
And
Mr.
also
Khurana,
importantly, capital out of 70,000 crore budget, she was claiming that the Delhi budget has 78,000 crore rupees. Out of that, only 9,000 crores is of capital outlay. And we all know what the capital outlay is. Capital outlay budget is for making the assets. So we are not spending a budget on making Delhi as a capital or making an asset. We are spending on freebies. We are spending on expenditures on this. We have to understand that where we are going in.
okay, but what about the fact, Mr. Khurana, what about the fact that the Aam Aadmi Party is also saying that this whole Revdi allegation that has been, talked about, BJP states are also waiving off farm loans. Yeah, those are promises you have made in the past.
If my point
You are
is
also
something
giving a lot. You are also touting how the center spends so much on welfare schemes. So what's the difference?
My point is something else. My point is, if your own state is going in a mess, in debt mess, why you are giving us free levies? 3 lakh crore rupees is a debt on Punjab. 3 lakh crore. You don't have money to pay the salaries. Delhi now, which was a debt-free city at one time, today 36,000 crores is not a small amount. 36,000 crores is a debt on Delhi government. And which I told you, figure out Jal Board and DTC. These are tip of the icebergs.
So you're saying that basic infrastructure is actually being leached upon, and it is becoming khokla, as they say, for fulfilling these freebies that obviously get votes in return. Meeta Chakrabarti is from the Congress Party. Meeta, what is the Congress Party's stand here? Do you also believe that Aam Aadmi Party's culture, more specifically in the last 10 years, has corroded the economies of both Delhi, as the BJP is alleging, and it could take Punjab the same way?
Okay, good evening to all your viewers and some uninterrupted time, please. Firstly, I do agree that there has to be a balance between a state revenue and the state expenses. And there has to be a balance between targeted welfare schemes and between promoting economy and promoting infrastructure in the state. However, having said that, we have seen in the past 5 years, more than 10 lakh crore rupees worth debt had been written off by the bank. We have seen the number of defaulters with Mehul Choksi topping that list. And however, the state and the union has money for that. But when it comes to welfare schemes, I have a problem with this term freebies. When it comes to welfare schemes, which are targeted schemes for the poorer sections, for the weaker sections of the society, the government seems to have a problem. Now, when we talk about targeted welfare schemes like minimum income support or any other welfare scheme which is to enhance, say, healthcare or education or to eradicate poverty, every single government, be it a state government or the central government, they have a responsibility to ensure inclusive development. No development is sustainable unless it's inclusive in its nature. And in order to ensure that, there are certain sections of the society who need some support from the government, who need a leg up.
Yeah, absolutely. That is what defines welfare. But for example, the Aam Aadmi Party scheme in Punjab, where they're going to give every woman a monthly stipend, that doesn't have any benchmarks of economic strata or age or education, nothing.
Scheme, exactly. So it has to be targeted. I'll give you an example of Chhattisgarh. Chhattisgarh government has been running a lot of welfare schemes for the farmers. There were about 19 lakh farmers who were benefited during the pandemic time. And then they have run a particular scheme for landless families, where they have given hundreds of crores of rupees as direct cash benefit or employment support to the landless families. So every particular welfare scheme needs to be targeted. The idea is to enhance them, to empower them so that they move out of that particular targeted group by enabling them to get a better life.
And does free electricity and free water fall into that category for you?
It has to be targeted for certain sections of the society. It cannot be free for all. And again, coming back, when you are giving money back to the poorer sections of the society, you're also enhancing their buying power. So the money is coming back to the market. And when the money is coming back to the market, you're indirectly giving a boost to the economy as well.
You know, can I just come in here? Meeta, I take your argument. But for example, during the pandemic, when the pandemic first set on, that was the argument that many were making, that you need to give money in the hands of the people for that purchasing power. The center didn't do that. The center gave them ration. The center gave them, for example, they have free schemes, there is free vaccination and there is free healthcare insurance, for example, that has been provided. So let's just say that there is no one set model that you need to employ. India has shown versus a lot of developed countries, you don't need to dole out cash for bringing up the purchasing power. Secondly, you compared it to defaulters. I don't know why the political parties are doing it. It's not comparable, but I guess this is politics, because you mentioned Mehul Choksi. Mehul Choksi's assets are also being attached. It's not like the country has just left his assets as is. A lot of what he has defrauded Indian banks is also being recovered. So let's not mix the two. Tushar?
No. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, Tushar. Is there a problem that is emerging, as many institutions are pointing out? But the larger question here is, who's going to bell the cat? Who's going to be strong enough to tell political parties you can say this and not that?
Good evening, Shivani. How do you get a nation to progress? Do you teach the women how to fish, or do you give them a fish every day? It's a very old theory, but it's a very relevant theory. You don't give a woman a fish every day. Rather, you teach her how to fish. Every time the topic of freebies and welfare comes up, the Aam Aadmi Party is quick to blame the BJP. But we have to understand what the Aam Aadmi Party does in its economic thinking is light years away from what the BJP does. A Mohalla clinic cannot be compared to Ayushman Bharat, because if that were the truth, the Mohalla clinics would have stood up to the responsibility in the pandemic. Did that happen? No, it did not happen. You cannot give a city free water to people who are earning more than 10 lakhs annually and call it welfare, because they can afford to pay their water bills. So can the free water scheme of the Aam Aadmi Party be compared to a Jal Jeevan mission by the BJP? Absolutely not, because there is no strategic targeting. Let's talk about Punjab, where the Aam Aadmi Party has made a government. They do not realize the kind of problem they have created for themselves by not backing the farm laws. Because today, the farmers over there are running out of water to cultivate wheat and paddy. They can give them free electricity. They can waive off their water bills. They can
But where
give
is
them
the
all
water?
but
Yeah.
there is no groundwater to cultivate these crops 5 years from now. So where do your freebies go?
Okay, can I invite the Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson to just respond to that? That you're actually making issues worse in Punjab, where you've just come into power. You muted, I think. Madam, you're muted. Can you unmute yourself? Okay, I don't think she can hear me. Tushar, continue.
Shivani, so the point is we have to differentiate between freebies. Now, Arvind Kejriwal goes to Gujarat and says, why don't you want free electricity? The people of Gujarat, of all the states in India, are in one of the best positions to pay the electricity bill every month. So why would you target a welfare policy towards them for no reason? Similar questions I have for Punjab. The farmers there are in a position to pay the water bills. They are actually earning rather well compared to farmers.
But it is populist. No, so that brings me to my other question, Tushar. Who's going to bell the cat? The Election Commission has been known to be a toothless body. It has certain powers, but it barely ever cracks down on political parties. Leave aside individuals from political parties during campaigning. I'm not sure if Parliament can come together. The political parties can barely see eye to eye on, much lesser issues. And this affects them directly during elections. So exactly who's going to save us?
Shivani, I'll give you a very unpopular opinion. The belling of the cat has to be done by the electorate. If people can't take their lessons from Punjab and Delhi in the next 5 years, they should realize that they're taking their local economies to doom. The people of Delhi should realize what free water and electricity cost them during the health crisis, both in 2020 and 2021. You literally had Arvind Kejriwal, the chief minister of Delhi, who was talking about the Mohalla clinic model for 6 years before that, begging in front of the Home Minister for help.
Okay.
That is what
I think Priyanka is back with that. I just want her to give me a response on that. How Punjab is actually being driven to worse after you came to power purely because of these populist freebie culture.
Shivani, give it some time. We got a debt-ridden state like Congress. Pravakta herself was admitting a 3 lakh debt-ridden state was given to us by Congress. And even then, within the first initial, it's not even been 150 days. Even in the first 150 days, we have returned a debt of 5,000 crores. So, and this is possible if you have the niyat, if you have the intention, if you have the political will, all of it is possible. When you were talking about attaching the assets by the ED or, of the defaulters, Shivani, one must not lose sight of the fact that 11,000 crores is the debt that has been written off. There is no attachment. This is the debt which has been written off by the central government.
Yes, I know how that works.
The subsidies which you get are comparatively peanuts. Also, let me also mention this, that, the midday scheme, for example, when it was started in 1982, even that was mocked at. And subsequently, this was Mr. K. Kamaraj, and subsequently it was expanded by M.G. Ramachandran ji. Now it is a national program. Even the N.T. Ramarao scheme, the N.T. Ramarao ji scheme of providing rice at rupees 2 kgs is what the National Food Security Program now is. So these were schemes that were mocked at initially. And let me, Shivani,
I'm running out of time. Tushar very quickly wants to respond to that. I know how defaults work, but you specifically mentioned Mehul Choksi, so I corrected that. But yes, Tushar, I have 30 seconds only. 30 seconds only.
Yeah.
Tushar, please.
The public sector banks in the last 4 years have recovered rupees 6.4 lakh crore worth of loans that were written off.
11 lakh crores. Answer that.
Let him finish.
The Aam Aadmi Party
answer that.
talk about niyat and all these fancy words. The niyat is not going to fix your groundwater levels in Punjab, man. 5 years from now, the farmers would run out of groundwater to cultivate the crops upon which the agricultural model of Punjab is built. On that day, none of your waivers, none of your freebies, not your niyat, not your intent, nothing is going to work. You need to back economic policies that make sense, that are sustainable, and moreover are not built on freebie castles. That's it.
Is it a more, Meeta, final 30 seconds, this has become about the myopic versus the long term. Are all political parties not guilty of, promoting this because in the short term it benefits them, but a lot of these policies are myopic and a lot of them backfire in the long run?
No, as I've started by saying that the welfare schemes needs to be targeted.
Shivani,
it has to have a specific target of helping, of eradicating poverty, of helping very the weaker sections and to ensuring that the economic progression is sustainable and inclusive. So it cannot be carrying on forever, but the idea is to empower these people, to give them a leg up so that they do not need these welfare schemes forever either.
Can I just point
And the
out,
idea is
Meeta,
to
you're
enhance
very
their
right.
buying
It should be
power.
short term. But you're very right.
should-
Look at reservation
yes.
in India. It was meant to be short term, right? It was never meant to be unending. But once people get used to, let's say, something which is reserved for them or which is, given to them or which is free, in this case, how are you ever going to be able to take it back? That's a big challenge.
I'll take that. I'll take that. It is a big challenge, accepted. But if you tie it to the economic condition of the family that you're trying to help, then if they move up the ladder out of that particular economic segment, it is highly possible that you can take that freebie back.
Fair point.
That welfare scheme
Fair
back.
point. But will
So it is
political parties
sustainable,
come
it's doable.
together to at least accept that there has to be a minimum benchmark and a criteria for
It
who
has to
gets
be
which
targeted,
benefit?
but you
That's the
cannot
minimum
be-
that we
you
have to
cannot
come
be
to agreement
functioning
with,
without the
because
welfare
otherwise
schemes.
this is going to become a slippery slope. More and more parties are going to offer more and more. They're going to offer the moon, the heaven and earth, and none of it is going to be held accountable. I have to leave it at that. I have to switch my attention to the other big story that we're tracking. I do thank all of you for joining us. Now, senior advocate and Rajya Sabha MP Kapil Sibal has sparked a massive row by targeting the Indian judicial system and the apex court in particular. Expressing his displeasure over some recent judgments by the Supreme Court, Sibal said that there is no hope that he has with this institution. Sibal further added that even if a landmark judgment is passed by the apex court, it hardly ever changes the ground reality. The comment quickly snowballed into a big controversy, with the Bar Association calling his remarks contemptuous and advising him not to appear before the courts if he has lost his faith in the judiciary. This clearly became a political war of words too, with the BJP accusing Sibal of denigrating institutions and being frustrated. Is it indeed a matter of sour grapes when somebody who's been a big shot lawyer like Kapil Sibal, who's been the law minister of the union government, says that the CGI deciding benches means that this institution cannot be independent? We'll take that to our guests in just a bit, but first up, here's what both sides have said.
आपको बेल नहीं मिलेगी जब तक ये नहीं साबित करोगे कि आप बेकसूर हो। और वो कानून सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा है सही कानून है, तो उस कानून अगर सुप्रीम कोर्ट ये कह दे कि सही कानून है, उस सुप्रीम कोर्ट की कितनी उम्मीद रखोगे उस सुप्रीम कोर्ट से?
Name you've taken is a very senior lawyer. I have a lot of respect for him, so I'm very surprised he should come out and say this. But you know, the rules of the game are well laid down. If you want to criticize the judgment, you can criticize it. But I don't think you should denigrate the entire institution.
Let's go across to the guests who are joining us. Tuhin Sinha is from the BJP, Adil Singh Bopara is from the Congress Party, and Dr. Adib C. Agarwala is President, International Council of Jurists, London, and Chairman of All India Bar Association joining us. We'll also be joined by a senior advocate in just a bit. Dr. Adish, I'm coming to you first up. You have called Kapil Sibal's comments contemptuous. What do you find especially problematic with what he has said?
You see, when he says that he has no hope left in the judicial institution of India, that is contemptuous. When he says independence is only possible when we stand up for our own rights and demand for independence. So this is a person of the stature of who remained the law minister of India, who is a member of parliament, who has been the president of Supreme Court Bar Association. If he says like this, somebody can approach the Attorney General seeking his permission to institute file this contempt petition before Honorable Supreme Court.
But sir, can I ask you, before I go across to our political representatives also, it's not only about being contemptuous, that it's a separate argument and possibly a more legal argument. But what do you make of his allegations per se? He has said, for example, he's raked up the issue of the masters of the roster, the CGI being the master of the roster. He's also touched about how judges are elected, for example. Now, that is a larger issue. Do you believe that, he has raised some issues, but possibly raised it in the wrong way? Or even these issues, do you feel, are sour grapes when it comes from somebody like Kapil Sibal?
He has no right, because he has been the Law Minister of India.
Right.
He should have got amendment in the procedure of the working of Supreme Court. This is well settled law that the Chief Justice of India has a right to frame the roster and allot the cases. This is not the first time. Always it has been like that.
Yes. You make a very good point. Let me go across to Adil Singh Boparai. Karuna Nandi, senior advocate, is also joining us on the show. Adil Singh, this sounds like a little bit of what the Congress party has also recently said. For example, Kapil Sibal raised the issue of the Zakia Jafri petition. He has raised the issue of the PMLA court judgment. When you don't like it, the courts are bad. When it goes in your favor, you hail the courts. You can't have it both ways. This is also a little bit of what the Congress narrative has been recently.
Shivani, firstly, I understand what you're trying to do here. You're trying to connect two unconnected issues. I would urge you not to play this clever game of the BJP. You're a news anchor. Please maintain that neutrality.
Answer my
Congress
question.
party is not party to this list. It is Mr. Kapil Sibal's statement. It is best that you ask him. Point number one. Point number two, there are pressing issues facing this country like price rise and unemployment. Obviously, you will not find time to discuss that. Point number three, which is the more critical issue. The Congress party firmly believes that institutions are sacrosanct. However, the Supreme Court itself has clarified that fair criticism or fair comment of judgments is permissible. However, there is a rider. Nothing should be said which thwarts or tends to obstruct the administration of justice, because ultimately the judiciary is the bulwark of our constitution. Having said this, the Congress party's position is very clear. It is for Mr. Sibal to respond. He is no longer with our party.
Yes, I know that.
Therefore,
the question I was asking you though is,
if you ask this question to him rather than asking to me.
No, my question is very much to you. It is not just to Mr. Kapil Sibal, it is very much to Congress party too, because similar voices have also come in from those who are within your party.
You ran a BJP agenda. I have no qualms in saying this.
Yeah,
you
okay,
run
fine.
a BJP agenda. You are trying to run a kangaroo discussion. The Congress party on the PMLA judgment has said certain things which is fair comment of the judgment. Please first take some lessons on what fair critique.
No, Congress leaders have also talked about how institutions have been undermined. They have also talked about how the judiciary also is one of those institutions that has been undermined. That is absolutely correct and to the fact.
I understand what you're doing. Please,
why are you getting so hyper?
We understand what you're doing. You are running BJP agenda. Don't mix up two issues. Mr. Sibal's statement is completely distinct from what we said on the PMLA issue.
Yeah, I'm asking about other things as well. Let Tuhin Sinha also come in. Let Tuhin Sinha also come in. Tuhin Sinha, there seems to be a tendency that is growing that many who've been part of the system, who've enjoyed the fruits of that very system, have begun to now say that this system is corrupt because it seems that it's no longer working for them. Because a lot of these issues that Kapil Sibal has talked about, a former law minister himself, and as the Bar Association chief said, what right does he have, are issues that have been raised before and are not issues that have arisen in the last couple of years.
Good evening, Shivani. You are spot on, absolutely, because the entire opposition seems to have embarked upon a dangerous game to denigrate the sacrosanct institutions of this country. And when Kapil Sibal said that, he only proved that he may not be in the Congress right now, but he has not grown out of the Congress mentality, because just 3 days ago, Rahul Gandhi had said we are battling the entire infrastructure of this country, if you remember. So, for a senior lawyer to make this kind of a statement, and an ex-law minister, I think it is laden with malafide intent. And 2 quick points over here. When a judgment goes against you, I mean, it's only the probability of a judgment going in favor or against you is 50-50. So when a judgment goes against you, is this how you will respond to? Is this how you will view the Supreme Court? That Supreme Court upon which lakhs and lakhs of people still place their faith. So I think he has done a huge injustice to the country. And like I said at the very start, I think the opposition needs to introspect. The frustration is showing the sheer lack of belief in their own ability, in their own conviction is now extending in them criticizing institutions, which is just showing them in very poor light.
Yes, and the PMLA judgment that Adil is referring to, where he says that his position, his party's position is distinctly different than Kapil Sibal. The question still is that Kapil Sibal was a minister in the Congress government when those PMLA amendments were made. So what he's saying today may be different as a non-Congress member. Yes, Adil, I'm coming to you. Please listen to me. Adil, please listen to me. Tohin, 1 second. The issue here is that when you also, as the Congress representative of the Congress party, raise the PMLA, it's not like that issue is devoid of questions to you yourself.
Now give me 60 seconds. You worked with Arnab Goswami at Republic. So are you answerable for everything what Arnab Goswami says? Please don't take the...
No, he's talking to me. He's talking to me. He's talking to me. Tohin. No need for anybody to lose their top. He's talking to me.
Shivani.
I never worked with Republic.
He's talking to me.
Shivani, let me clarify for Mr. Sinha.
Yeah, I'm not sure where you're going with this. I think the Congress party could actually do its own. The Congress party could do its own stand of favor by talking about its own stand instead of attacking anchors all the time, which has become a habit for Adil Singh. But I'll let that slide because I don't want to denigrate this. I just want to discuss the core merits of this issue. Karuna Nandi has been waiting. Karuna, is there a problem by and large with what Kapil Sibal has said? Or is there a problem in the manner he has expressed himself? For example, do we not need a larger debate on how the judiciary or the judges are selected?
I think that we can't let an important issue like this degenerate into, off with his head sort of. Let them, let contempt proceedings be moved or make it a political debate. Because I think the issues here are a lot more serious. We have, for example, 2 judgments at the very least that merit discussion, and absolutely you can have your view and the panelists can have their view, and it's very important to have one's view because these are the judgments that affect your day-to-day life and everybody's day-to-day life. And we must remember also that while the Congress and the UPA, and I have critiqued them on these bases while they were in power, have made, for example, laws like 66A and have empowered the ED in particular ways, the kinds of prosecutions and weaponizing of these laws and the mass persecution of opposition leaders with a conviction rate of 0.5% by the Enforcement Directorate that this government has undertaken is of a different scale altogether. Let me speak about why perhaps Mr. Sibal was expressing anguish, whether or not that form is deemed to be appropriate. But I think when somebody like Mr. Sibal does express anguish, we must keep in mind that he is not part of any he's certainly not part of the Congress anymore. I'm not aware of whether he's part of any other political party. But also, if you ask anyone who the top 10 or 20, 10 lawyers, top 5 even, lawyers of the Supreme Court are in terms of getting relief, Mr. Sibal's name will be in that top 5. Yes. So this gentleman had a lot to lose when he spoke. He is seen when he's arguing these sorts of cases as a political person, but in many ways, he just argues commercial cases and argues other cases. And
so
is very well rewarded for them.
For him?
So when he speaks, we must take it very,
benefiting from that same system, now crying because that system is no longer working for him.
No, the point I'm making, Ms. Gupta, is this: is that he was benefiting, he continues to benefit from that system, right? Even today. So the fact that, today I don't know, but definitely until yesterday.
Right.
Right. What I'm saying is that a lot of his cases are apolitical. What I'm saying is that he left the Congress. So what I'm saying is that he absolutely didn't have to speak up. What I am saying is that he had a lot left to lose. But let us put individuals aside, because these issues that we speak of, hopefully that they are on your discussion, because they are not about individuals, right?
Yeah, so as I asked you, is there something that you find is a legitimate concern that Mr. Sibal has raised? Which part of his comment?
I think that there is anguish that Mr. Sibal is expressing and that some other people have expressed with some of the recent judgments of the court that I think really merit listening to.
Okay,
Right?
Karuna, let me take this to Dr. Adish one more time, because I don't think this is the first time where we have had...
No, I would just like to finish, please,
Yeah, okay,
because I'm
okay.
making a substantive point here.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm really trying to not take it away from this ugly name calling. I think it's pointless, right?
Can I come in?
Let us look at two judgments. Let us look at the Watali judgment. The case involved the UAPA and bail under the UAPA, section 43D5, right? Now, initially, what this person, Watali, the accused, had gotten bail from the High Court because what had been said was that as far as the statutes concerning serious offences inviting grave consequences are invoked by the state, then the trial court must scrutinize the material with great care. And then what the Supreme Court said is that the standard was watered down to a very significant extent, which according to many observers, and I agree with this, to a significant extent reduced the judge to the position of a stenographer for the prosecution.
Okay.
Because what it said was that you can only look at the police report and the case status on the face of it, and you can't really go behind it too much.
All right, Karuna, I have
Secondly,
limited time, so let me
with
just give
regard to
Dr.
the
Ashish
PMLA,
a final
with
chance
regard
to
to the
respond to you.
PMLA,
So there are large questions that are being raised
Shivani,
over
can I come
certain
in? You
judgments.
haven't given me time
Dr.
to speak
Ashish,
at
do
all.
you believe that is that a fair argument to be made, or is this actually all nicely fitting a political narrative? Dr. Ashish only. Dr. Adish?
You are talking to me?
Yes, sir. Sorry. Dr. Adish.
You see the problem, the 145 witnesses were, their statements were recorded through SIT in the court. Court has given the ample time, and as a matter of fact, under this procedure, if the complainant is not satisfied with the charge sheet, they can move to court and ask them such and such more evidence should be brought, which the complainant and their counsel have never sought that other witnesses should be also called. The Honorable Supreme Court, seeing all the evidence, and found that no case is made out. That's why the petition was dismissed. It is not the case. They can't say now. Mr. Kapil Sibal is saying that no evidence was recorded. 145 witnesses were there,
Right.
and complainant was having a right to move to court because such and such more witnesses
Dr.
should
Adish,
be
let me ask you a
brought in
final
the-
question. Do you see this as if he may not be part of a political party, but do you essentially see this as a loss of power frustration, as a political frustration, or is this his personal individual view?
It is a frustration. I'm saying it is a frustration because he was the law minister and he was part in appointment of the judges, especially the Chief Judge Justice Khanwilkar was appointed during his time when he was, because you see in Congress, Mr. Kapil Sibal was dealing with the legal matters. In BJP, Mr. Arun Jaitley was dealing. All judges, they were supposed to be. So he feel what I argue, what I demand, judges should give that relief.
All right.
That is the frustration. But judges go by as per law.
All right. I'll leave it at that. I think that's a very telling statement that Dr. Adish C. Agarwala is making. I have to leave it at that. We'll try to take this forward in days to come because this is something that keeps cropping up from time to time. It's okay to disagree with the judgment, but is it okay to bring down the judicial system completely with your comments? We have to slip into a very short break. On the other side, we'll get you some special conversations from our Commonwealth Games medalists and their families. Families and fathers of Sindhu and Lakshya, two of our gold medalists today, will be joining us in just a bit.